better. Go ahead, Stephanie. Thank you for being
Okay,
here.
okay. Thank you very everyone for all coming here today, and thank you very much, Victor and Geoffroy, to invite me to present our research. So this lunch lecture is really an opportunity for us to introduce our MEDIALUX project, which I am delighted to present to you today. And this project is coordinated by Raphael Kiss and myself at the University of Luxembourg in collaboration with Luxembourg Government's Media, Connectivity and Digital Policy Department. And yes, we started it in 2022. The MEDIALUX project is a research project on the study of the media in Luxembourg, which comprises 5 key functions. First, it's monitoring media pluralism in Luxembourg through the Media Pluralism Monitor. It's a published study each year with European countries. Second, we had an observation of local media in Luxembourg with the report Local Media for Democracy. And the heart of MEDIALUX project is to conduct qualitative and quantitative studies of the use and reception of the media in Luxembourg, as well as the organization of an annual series of conferences on the media in society. And we are currently organizing this series of conferences called Media Reform in partnership with the Media, Connectivity and Digital Policy Department of Luxembourg government to help reform the law on electronic media, which is dated from 1991. So with this project, we want to help adapt this law for the new digital information ecosystem. And we organized conferences on a number of topics, including uses, media reception, influencers, AI in journalistic contents, moderation in platforms and in the media, particularly with regard to hate speech and anonymity, as well as disinformation and misinformation and media literacy. The objectives of the MEDIALUX research project are to produce and disseminate quantitative and qualitative data on the Luxembourg media ecosystem in order to maintain and develop a pluralistic and sustainable media landscape that responds to the issues and challenges of contemporary society. And this data will be used to develop scientific knowledge of the media, information, social networks, and professional journalism in Luxembourg in a national and a global societal context marked also by the phenomena of disinformation and misinformation. And this knowledge will serve as a basis for exploring in greater depth and shedding light on current legal, political, ethical, and sociological issues relating to the digitalization of information and the media. So first, I will present quickly the Media Pluralism Monitor, which is a scientific tool produced by the Center for Media Pluralism and Freedom of the European University Institute, funded by the European Commission. And this research tool has been created to identify risk to media pluralism in the member states of the European Union and in some candidate countries for European integration. This report is based on data collected for the MPM each year, and the project was implemented in 27 European Union member states, as well as in Albania, Montenegro, the Republic of Northern Macedonia, Serbia, and Turkey. We are the coordinator of Luxembourg report with Raphael Kiss. And concerning the methodology, each year we collect data to answer to the 200 variables in the 4 areas of the questionnaire, such as fundamental protection, multiple markets, political independence, and social inclusion. We also conduct interviews with experts and media players in Luxembourg. So here you see an example of the results on the screen for the plurality of markets. Market plurality is at medium risk in Luxembourg and is always an issue for Luxembourg media landscape. The market plurality area considers the economic dimension of media pluralism, assessing the risk deriving from insufficient transparency in media ownership, the concentration of the market in terms of both production and distribution, the sustainability of media content production, and also the influence of commercial interest and ownership on editorial content. And the actors included in the assessment are media content providers with indicators including transparency of media ownership. And also you have editorial independence from commercial and ownership influence, and digital intermediaries with the indicator on plurality in digital markets. And I also forget plurality of media providers. So as you know, we have always a problem of media plurality with RTL, for example. So it's always the issue in Luxembourg about it. But the Luxembourg media landscape has not fundamentally changed in 2024. And we would like to highlight a number of areas for improvement. Further increase access to administrative information for journalists and citizens in order to foster trust between the state and citizens. And this is important in the current context of disinformation and misinformation, of course. And however, this access is now well on the way to being guaranteed because in July 2024, a bill was tabled to introduce access to information for journalists and to promote professional journalism and democratic debate. So maybe the access will be better for journalists, we will see. And also we have another improvement. It's the improve of transparency of media ownership because actually we don't have a cartography of the media ownership with the actionaries and the different stakeholders of the media ownership, and we would like to have it in Luxembourg too. The second key function of MEDIALUX is to monitor local media in Luxembourg through the Local Media for Democracy project, in collaboration also with the Center for Media Pluralism and Freedom of the European University Institute and the European Commission. And the aim of the project is to identify the challenges facing local and community media and to target information deserts in the 27 European Union member states using a methodology comprising 55 variables and 5 indicators. And I was in charge of the report for Luxembourg last year. So as you can see on the screen, the 5 indicators are local media infrastructure, market and reach, safety of local journalists and inclusion. And the local media encompass different types of media, print, audiovisual, and digital, of course. And the particularity of Luxembourg, it's in Luxembourg, local and national news tend to be intertwined in the media. However, local information should be distinguished from national information by the target audience due to specific localities, and local information doesn't concern all residents. In terms of results, Luxembourg remains on average at a very low risk for local media infrastructure and the safety of journalists, and at a low risk for editorial independence and social inclusion. The market and scope are at medium risk, mainly due to a lack of accessible data for the year 2023. And what's more, the size of the country and the fact that public transport is free make it easier for journalists to access to the different areas. And this limits the risk of information deserts, unlike in other European countries. We will now continue with the presentation of our study of media use and reception in Luxembourg and our initial results. This is a mixed methodology, qualitative and quantitative, carried out in 2023. On the one hand, with regard to the quantitative study, we drew up and distributed 3 questionnaires to find out how the media are used and received in Luxembourg, particularly in the electoral context of the legislative elections in October 2023. And we also organize 6 focus groups with different age groups in order to expand on the quantitative data. These discussion groups made up of 6 to 12 participants with an ILRES facilitator, which is from Luxembourg Polling Institute, and focus groups took place in March 2023. And the people in the focus groups were selected to ensure that they were representative of the population of Luxembourg in terms of language, level of education, social category, and nationality of origin. And the 6 groups discussed questions taken from the interview guide we had drawn up, entitled "How do you get information in Luxembourg?" And the aim is to study how information is used and received in the age of digitalization and social networks. And this guide was divided into 3 parts. Part 1 involved obtaining data on media use in general. We wanted to find out what proportion of people use social networks compared to traditional media and interactions. In the second stage, we asked the different groups about their use and interaction with social networks in general. We wanted to observe the different uses and interactions of social networks and explore the self-reflexive capacities of individuals in relation to their own uses. And finally, the last part was devoted to the themes of trust in the media and the circulation of fake news and false information. And we wanted to understand how users trust information sources on social networks and to what extent they check information. So first of all, we have opted for an overview of all media channels in order to have a complete picture of the information ecosystem. So when we compare the average use of different media in Luxembourg to obtain information by asking the question, how many days a week do you use the various media to keep informed? The internet is the first media channel, followed by radio and then television, and the written press comes last. By age category, we also asked on average, how many days a week do you use TV news channels to follow the national news? And we can observe that the 65 and over age group are the biggest television users in Luxembourg, followed by the 55-64 age group. And to sum up, the older people are in Luxembourg, the more they watch television. So it's not really a surprise. But young people are watching less traditional television, which is not to say that they don't watch videos, quite the contrary, but they are now watching videos more often from social networks. So as this is the case here with Cindy from group 2, age 21-29, who tell us, I don't watch television. News is on the networks, especially for videos. I use TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat a lot. Young people use of audiovisual media has thus shifted towards social networks, as they prefer personalized information based on their tastes and interests, and algorithm makes this possible by selecting content from the newsfeed based on the user's interest and interactions. It's also interesting to see that even some over 60s, like Roman's wife on the screen, are opting for personalized information. The viewers he describes no longer watch television in general, but choose to watch programs that are more in line with their interests. And we can see that with the digitalization of information, and the media users have more and more choices, and they select their exposure to content according to their preferences. Concerning the radio use in Luxembourg, it's interesting to see that radio is still widely used despite its aging technology. And on the other hand, radio is less widely used among young people. So when you read the verbatims on the screen, it's interesting to see two different ways of using radio. Radio is the main information media for Stephanie, whereas for Julie, it's an accompanying media, secondary in the final analysis, which allows her to do other things at the same time, such as driving in this case. And at home, it's different. She explains that she is more concentrated and therefore chooses a radio format that is more engaging and longer in terms of listening, such as a podcast. So we are also seeing a boom in podcasts in Luxembourg, which are targeted more at center of interest. Once again, a move away from general information towards personalized information, and in other words, better adapted to the needs of the public for information on specific subjects of concern to them that are not necessarily part of the immediate news. Despite their longer format, podcasts appeal to a certain audience looking for more in-depth media coverage of certain subjects, and some digital press media whose strategy is to develop new, more attractive audio formats have seized on this innovative format without necessarily having the tradition of radio within their media, such as the Luxembourg Journal or Paper Jam websites. Concerning the press in Luxembourg, people age 65 and over are the most likely to use the written press for national news. As television news, the older you are in Luxembourg, the more you read the written press for news. And in these verbatims, we can observe two changes in the way the written press is used by the digitalization of the media. As example, Julie from Group 2, age 21-29, explains, I tend to wait until I see an article, either on my phone or reading the paper on public transport. It's more like information comes to me. It describes access to information by serendipity, waiting to discover information that comes to it by chance, and it only seeks information for a specific area of interest. And France, also age 60 years old, in Group 5, highlights the change in the way people use information, the shift from paper to digital sources of information, even at 60 years old. Concerning now internet use, including professional media websites and mobile applications, social networks, and artificial intelligence. On average, the age group that uses the websites or mobile applications of professional media titles the most days a week to keep abreast of national news is at age 65 and over, even though all age groups have a fairly high level of websites used to keep informed. Professional media websites are the main sources of information used in Luxembourg concerning internet. Then you have also the search engines, social networks, messaging networks, as WhatsApp, for example, and content aggregators and AI. Unsurprisingly, in Luxembourg, it's the youngest people who use social networks the most, as you can see on the screen. And many Luxembourgers spend between 1 and 2 hours on social networks, the 19-24 age group spends the most time on social networks, averaging between 3 and 4 hours a day. And the social networks most used by 18-24 years old in Luxembourg are Instagram, Snapchat, WhatsApp, YouTube, and TikTok. And from this verbatim, we can identify two major changes with social networks. On the one hand, the personalization of information described by Laura, who says that she only looks for specific subjects and that she only reads what interests her on her Facebook and TikTok newsfeed. And on the other hand, as Cindy describes it, social networks have become an information channel that disseminates topical news content and are now used to keep up to date on all subjects. With regard to AI as a source of information, this involves first-time people in Luxembourg have been asked about it. As you can see on the screen for the year 2023, many people are still not using it, but we'll see whether this use will change in the next MEDIALUX study. So the use of generative artificial intelligence, such as ChatGPT, reflects a new way of searching for information. And what's new about it? It has a lower cognitive cost for the user than traditional search engine. With artificial intelligence, users no longer need to make an effort of linking information together. And ChatGPT does this for them by providing written answers. And individuals no longer have to make the effort to develop their own ideas based on research. And this raises questions about the development of critical thinking and knowledge. As Klaus says, you can see on the screen in the verbatim, he gave a PowerPoint presentation in 5 minutes on a subject he knew nothing about. So generative artificial intelligence, such as ChatGPT, trained on limited databases, will pose a major problem in the long term, as Pierre points out, the lack of pluralism in knowledge, which could encourage the homogenization of opinion. And as the researcher Philippe Roqueplot pointed out yet in 1983 in his book Thinking About Technology for a Concrete Democracy, technology is not neutral. It refers to a network of social relationships, which by generating it have given it meaning. Now, concerning the use of professional news media in Luxembourg, RTL, of course, is the leading professional news media. Then we have the Luxemburger Wort, L'Essentiel, and Eldoradio. As you can see on the screen, the most popular professional news media for all age groups is still RTL, followed by Luxemburger Wort. And the public service media 100,7, Eldoradio, L'Essentiel, and Tegeblatt are not the main media for Luxembourgers. So we have moved into a new information ecosystem. Professional media and content or social networks are complementary ways of getting information also in Luxembourg. And consulting social networks has become a daily information routine. Social networks are often the gateway to news from the professional news media, as this is the case here on the screen with Jordan, who gets his information from YouTubers who react to current events. And on social networks newsfeed, respondents told us that they receive content from professional news media, as well as from content creators and influencers. Furthermore, we were able to observe that the reception of information in Luxembourg is open to the world. Luxembourgers get their information from the Luxembourg media, but also from the international media. It's a particularity in Luxembourg. as Celia indicates here in the verbatim selected on the screen. And we can explain it by the multi-linguistic landscape of Luxembourg. We also looked at how Luxembourgers perceived the independence of journalists. And as you can see, the people of Luxembourg have their independence in a little doubt, even if the majority of people still have a fairly good perception of independence. It's not entirely perceived. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 for not at all, to 5 for definitely yes, 40.7% of users rate journalists at 3. So the perception of respect for pluralism in media coverage during elections was also divided in the society, as you can see on the screen. And with regard to the last two verbatims, we are going to look at the question of trust and misinformation that is important for EDMO. So as you can see on the screen, Gilles and Zaki both express their distrust of information by adopting the almost journalistic practice, which is very interesting, of cross-checking sources. And both media users, they are no less suspicious. Gilles explains that he has had no confidence in the professional media since the COVID-19 health crisis because of the way the media have treated him, which he feels has been inconsistent over time. Zaki is also suspicious, adopting a journalistic approach by cross-checking sources to check information, but this time it is circulating on social networks and is not necessarily the product of professional media reporting. Concerning social network use and interaction in Luxembourg, on average, social networks are used to keep abreast of international news, national news, react to content with emojis, share professional media content, create content, follow content from influencers. And Luxembourgers are mainly exposed to content from the professional media and from their friends and family on the social networks. Then there is exposure to political content and influencers. And young people between 18 and 24 years old are more exposed to influencer content. We also asked Luxembourgers on the whole, does the information you are exposed to on social networks correspond to your opinions? As you can see, the majority think that is this sometimes or often the case. And during our focus groups, we realized that some participants had the self-reflexive ability to take a step back from their use of social networks. And we've given you an example, including the attempt by Emmeline from group 2 of 21, 29 years old to reverse the way in which the recommendation algorithm of social networking websites tend to lock you into a filter bubble that looks just like you, with content suggested to you according to your affinities, tastes, and interactions. And this perception of the filter bubble, of being locked away in an inward-looking environment, was also expressed by France, age 60, from group 5, who said, you with yourself, and that's the danger, because you're no longer confronted with other realities, other perceptions. And concerning confidence in information disseminated on social networks and misinformation in Luxembourg, Luxembourgers are divided on the question of how much they trust information circulating on social networks when it comes from a media news website, the written press, or a radio or a television program. The majority has some confidence, 59.8%, but 28.4% don't have much confidence, even if the information comes from a professional media source posted on social networks. And Luxembourgers say to us that they are frequently confronted with fake news. Although Luxembourgers are aware of the presence of fake news on social networks, only 34.6% of them sometimes check the source of the information, and only 25.1% do so often. On the subject of disinformation, I also conduct a comparative study between 3 countries, including Luxembourg, on a specific type of disinformation known as re-information, from the French réinformation. And this form of disinformation consists of using journalistic content to misinform in order to defend an ideology and influence opinion, particularly electoral behavior. And this type of disinformation is part of harmful content, but is not illegal content, because it's very subtle disinformation that can be identified in the way the information is formatted. For example, headline change, article cut, copy paste, and so on. Luxembourg is also a country affected by the public's distrust of professional media journalists and also by the phenomenon of reinformation. After interviewing the public seduced by this reinformation, I put together a corpus of articles from the professional media we use by the Réinformation website, which is French, called F de Souche, if you know or heard about it. And the aim of this study, of this comparative study, was to find out as much as possible about the day-to-day concerns and challenges faced by journalists in the face of this reinformation. And the journalists were selected because they belong to media outlets which contents are regularly reused by the reinformation sites, which then disseminates this reuse on social networks. So, for example, I had a lot of meetings with the Essentiel journalists from Luxembourg, because a lot of papers from these newspapers is often reused by the website of reinformation and also on social networks. In conclusion, the MEDIALUX studies provide unprecedented scientific data on media use and reception in Luxembourg, because we don't have enough data for the specific Luxembourg media ecosystem. And they make it possible to quantify and qualify the Luxembourg media ecosystem and make it visible at national and international level. And MEDIALUX Project aims to perpetuate media studies in Luxembourg in order to meet new democratic challenges such as social networks, disinformation, influencers, and artificial intelligence. So thank you very much for your attention, and now I am available to answer any question you may have. So thank you very much. And just maybe to highlight one point, you are all invited to the Media Reform conferences cycle. The next conference is about AI in journalistic content, and it will take place at Casino in Luxembourg on the October 22. And it's between 6 and 8 o'clock in the evening. So you are all invited to this event. So thank you very much, and I'm available for the questions.
Sorry, Sorry, Stephanie, I lost the internet connection as you were concluding. So I hope that you're done with your presentation. Thank you very much. I see that there are a couple of questions in the chat. I do have a couple of questions as well. I know we only have about 10 minutes because you have your other meeting, Stephanie. But regarding your invitation for the seminar on AI and the next seminars, if you want, we can of course make this invitation available to all the people who were present today, and of course as well on the EDMO website, because it is after all one of our goals to be a hub and act as a network. Thank you very much for your presentation. I do have a couple of questions and maybe start with one comment. I think those media pluralism studies are always interesting, but also funny. I think for such a small media market as Luxembourg, it's difficult to already have one broadcaster. And I think we are already quite lucky to have RTL and one broadcaster. If you take a point of comparison with Belgium, if you only take French-speaking Belgium, we have about 4 million people, and it's only also two broadcasters in the end, the public RTBF and the private RTL, or the Belgian version of RTL. But yeah, it is what it is. Media is expensive. I do have a few questions regarding the quantitative study. As you say, I think, as you said, it's really interesting in its data that I think we didn't have for Luxembourg before. I don't know of any quantitative study that existed. So even though I'm not surprised with the results, I think it's quite good that we have them and that we start to base what we know about Luxembourg on on empirical data. I do have two questions. So the first one is that I think I see that in the quotes that you have, you make the difference between Luxembourger nationals or binational. Sometimes you said German Luxembourger or this kind of stuff, and then residents, but you don't show that in the data. Is this something that you measured? Do you see a big difference in media consumption between the residents and the nationals or not? Or is this something that you haven't tried to measure at all? And then my second question that relates to that is regarding languages. You gave a nice graph with the most popular news sources, RTL, then The Word, then I think Essential, and then El Doradio. But you didn't mention anything regarding languages. Is that something that you measure? Do Luxembourgers?
Sorry, I lost the connection of Victor.
Okay.
Ah,
So sorry, again, if you can, sorry, I don't know why the
can you
internet
repeat
is.
the second question, please? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just difference in languages. Did you find so you have media outlets in different languages? Did you find differences, or do people only consume media in one language, or can they switch from German or Luxembourgish to French, this kind of stuff?
Okay, thank
And then I
you.
will read the other questions, but thank you for your answers in any case.
So maybe I will start with the second, it's more easy. Yes, the particularity of Luxembourg people is to switch in because we have three official languages in Luxembourg, but they also consume, of course, English and international news. And it depends really, because the second question is also linked to the first question. It depends on the origins of the Luxembourgers, and this is also a particularity of Luxembourg, because to be representative, we need to precise, of course, the Luxembourger national, who have the nationality, but we have to precise aussi, sorry, we have also to precise the residents, because, for example, Luxembourg City is composed at 50% of strangers who are only residents. And so it's a really particularity to have this multicultural population in Luxembourg. And that's why we would like to show the quantitative data about their consumption, because they're not a major difference between Luxembourg national and Luxembourg residents. The
Okay.
particularity that we found is more that it's really a reception and uses of information and news open to the world. Because a lot of people that we talk with, they explain to that for a news, for example, a Britain news from England, for example, they always watch BBC, for example, and they have really this kind of particularity reception of information, which is open to the world. And I think it's really interesting to observe this kind of difference because before I work in France, and the reception of information in France is really French, and it's
Mm.
not really some for a minority is open to the world, but it's not the case as the audience in Luxembourg. So it's really interesting to to highlight that this particularity
Mm.
of yeah, pluralistic and multicultural.
France is too big to be interested in other countries, which is not the case for Luxembourg. I'm just kidding. Thank you very much for your answer. There is one question that I think relates to France a little bit. Is Stéphane from the RTBF who's asking us, can you explain a bit more about the concept of réinformation? And that relates to the second question from Trisha, who says, is the website reference part of a broader research or media literacy project? I think the concept of réinformation relates to your thesis, your doctoral thesis, if I'm correct. So maybe if
Uh,
you can give us a few words.
Yeah, not exactly. It was a
Okay.
work began in during my thesis, but it was an apart work. It was not about my thesis.
Okay.
So reinformation is a concept from the white extreme at first, but now is more general. It's because of some people don't trust anymore the media, the traditional media, that they want to consume the information, but not from the media directly, but for alternative websites. And for example, I worked on the special website that was called the first political blog in France that has influence on the behavior of people in electoral periods. It's called F de Souche,
Mhm.
and at first it's really a right extreme political ideology, but it's interesting because they did this copy paste process copy paste the journalistic content originally from, for example, in Luxembourg, from l'Essentiel newspaper. But the manipulation of the information, which make disinformation and sometimes fake news, it's really in the cut, and it's in the changing of title also. And I continue so my first study about it um, for a comparison analysis between three French spoken countries, Luxembourg, France, and Canada, because all these countries are touched by this manipulation of journalistic content. But yes, people are sometimes seduced by this reinformation because they don't believe media, and they don't trust media anymore, traditional media. And that's why I start to have an interview with these people first, and after I conduct interview with journalists. So, and yes, there is this article, and there is also one chapter about the concept of reinformation. And the reinformation concept was first used by two French journalists, for a book named La Fachosphère. And it was Doucet and Albertini. And then I was really interesting about it because of the influence during the electoral periods in France. So yes, and I will also answer to the Trisha question.
Thank you.
Sorry, I read it. Um, Alors, it was a question that I asked to journalists in all the countries I conduct the studies. And they are really careful in how they circulate their content on social media. And sometimes they really think about the choice of the word and the choice of the titles because of this reusing, which is really problematic. For example, in Luxembourg, a journalist said to me that he had to face violence on the field, on the journalistic field, for example, during the pandemic of COVID-19. And it's really difficult sometimes, even you have the original article, to make people understand that it's not the same content. So we need time, and yes, journalists don't have always this time to explain to people, but they are really careful of the circulation of the contents on social media. And perhaps responding to their trust in social media, um, I I can observe there is also no trust in social media, and there is a consciousness about the importance to check information, even they don't do it every time.
Okay.
So maybe I hope that I answered to Trisha question.
I think you did. I'm pretty sure you did. And if not, it's always I think it's time for me to invite us to keep this discussion going for another time because I think you have another presentation. So I do want to invite everyone who hasn't registered yet to our event next week, next Tuesday, on the 15th of October. EDMO is having a networking event which will be made of some presentations, a debate, and then a small game at RTL in Luxembourg. So it will be a full day about media, about disinformation in Luxembourg, and it will be held in Luxembourg. This networking event is organized together with the Remedis, which is another research project on disinformation in Luxembourg and in Belgium. It's a free event. So again, if you haven't registered, please register and come. And if not, Stephanie, you mentioned a few of your seminars. I think you're doing 3 seminars. We'll make sure to circulate that among our colleagues here and to a wider audience if you want. I know your capacity is limited, but yeah, we're always pleased to make people connect to one another. After all, this is the main goal of EDMO, is to create and animate this hub, this network on disinformation, and of course that goes along with getting more actual empirical data on media in Luxembourg and in Belgium and discussing it. So, Stephanie, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those who had to leave, or if you have colleagues, we will make sure to have the link to this video shared so that people can also watch it when they have time, if they want. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you, Stephanie. And see you maybe next week in Luxembourg or next time online at our next lunch